Well, I can't read the president's mind, but it was very clear. He was speaking to donors yesterday, and in that meeting, I agree with your colleagues around the table that President Biden made as strong a possible support for Israel. He says we have your back, that the Hamas acted like animals, that the United States will be supporting Israel all the way that it could possibly support it. However, there is a difference of view. And the media is making it a dispute. I don't know what the right word would be, but it's a difference of view about what the post-conflict situation should look like. Nobody, I think, in Israel wants to see Israel running Gaza for any period of time. That would be a nightmare, and it would not be a very successful operation. However, the question of what to replace it with, one can agree, many in the Middle East agree that the Palestinian Authority, currently configured with Abbas at 87 and corrupt as can be, and making statements that are contrary to Israel's security, and also paying martyrs for the families of martyrs for attacking Israel. He is not an appropriate leader. The time is ripe for, in the post-conflict period, to find a young leadership that in the Palestinian Authority could run the Palestinian Authority effectively under Israeli sort of oversight, and at the same time bring in sort of, there's talk of bringing in a Middle East peacekeeping force, possibly with some African forces that have significant experience with peacekeeping, and to run the security of Gaza. And then the administration of Gaza could be left open to figuring out who would be the appropriate new leaders that can take over.
Yeah,
so as far as a break, so that's the difference, I think, between Israel and the United States.
Not a simple task, by the way, but I'm going to go back to Biden. It is very unusual for a U.S. president to say that to a democratically elected foreign government. You have to change the government, right?
Well, it wouldn't be the first time the United States has said that to any government. I can assure you, over the years, in 25 years in the State Department, I've heard the United States say that to a number of countries. Saying that the government of Israel should change may only reflect the fact that at every single war that Israel has had, the leader of that war, including Golda Meir in the Yom Kippur War, were all left office, and there was a commission of inquiry, and that leader did not remain in power. But Bibi, to think that he could possibly, break the precedent, and considering what has happened to Israel over this period of time, it is time, I think, what Biden is saying, for a new leadership in Israel. Bibi's been around since I was serving at the U.S. Embassy in Tel Aviv in 1995, 1996, and he won by 0.2% against Peres. And he continues to manipulate all of these images and statements, resisting the United States and going against the idea of a two-state solution. There will be a two-state solution. The question is only when. Is it going to be in the near future? Is it going to be in the middle future? But eventually there has to be some kind of way that Israel remains a Jewish state and that the Palestinians have some kind of authority over their own affairs.
How far will Biden go against Netanyahu on this in an election year of all things, do you think?
Well, the election year is already upon us in the United States, and there will be in 5 weeks the first Iowa caucuses for the Republican Party, and in February for the Democratic Party. Biden is not facing any threat internally to run as president, but his numbers are low. But I don't think Americans are going to be voting on the question of what leadership Israel should have and what kind of peace agreement or understanding or administrative role there should be in Gaza. They'll be voting on economic issues. They'll be voting on abortion. They'll be voting on a whole other range of internal issues important to the United States. You're right. It is a little bit unusual. Speaking to donors, maybe he was not thinking about the fact that the press was there. But, Netanyahu has to also be thinking about, for the good of Israel, after 12 weeks of almost, all of Israel going into the streets against his Supreme Court proposals, I think it's time for new leaders to be able to rise up, and Benny Gantz is one of the ones that seems the most likely one to replace Netanyahu when the war is over.
Let me ask you, Amir, here in the studio, about the Netanyahu side again. How far will he be able to go against Biden?
That also has to do with the name Dr. Stoffer just mentioned, Benny Gantz. As long as Benny Gantz is in the emergency war cabinet, Netanyahu can go very far. But once Gantz leaves, along with Gadi Eisenkot, who is now in mourning, but because his son was killed in Gaza, but he will be back soon and is esteemed all over the political spectrum. Then the party which Gantz heads will probably start leaving the cabinet, perhaps gradually. Perhaps they will first announce, then they will implement, and then the road to early elections will start to be short. And if that happens, Netanyahu will have to consider whether he takes a plea bargain in his trial rather than testify in his own defense a few months from now, whether he wants to lead Likud and face defeat in an early elections, a whole sort of issues. Joe Biden will be the least of his problems.
All right. Back to you, Dr. Stoffer. I want to ask you about the bipartisanship in America regarding Israel. This is still very strong, despite the fact that aid, financial aid, is not coming because of Ukraine.
Yes, that's correct. First of all, I wanted to say that President Biden is not President Barack Obama. Bibi is not going to be able to, go and run around this president, especially during wartime and when the United States is trying to put a bill forward that would give $14.6 billion to Israel to cover its costs. That bill is being held up because it's linked to aid to Ukraine, and it's also being held up because the Republicans want to see some kind of language that would change our policy on our southern border, which is allowing so many refugees to be coming in by the thousands per day, and that is a very disturbing process. So I think if they can't work it out before the end of next week, when the Congress will break for the holidays, the American holidays, then the bill with money for Israel will have to wait till January. Of course, it's Ukraine that's the much more vulnerable party in this.
Right. Dr. Albert Stoffer, I thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.